तो चलिए देखते हैं एथीज्म पे लेक्चर नंबर 4, जिसमें कुछ फिजिक्स के कॉन्सेप्ट्स को डिस्कस किया गया है, हाइड्रोलॉजी के बारे में भी डिस्कस किया गया है, और जो ये समंदर और पहाड़ है इनके बारे में भी डिस्कस किया गया है। ठीक है, वीडियो देखिए।
In the field of physics, there was a very famous theory known as atomism, which was propounded by the Greeks, particularly Democrats, 23 centuries before. And according to this theory, the theory of atomism, atom is the smallest part of matter which cannot be divided. And in Arabic, the word for atom is zarra. And even zarra means a small part, a very minute part. And the Quran speaks about zarra. But now, after science has advanced, we have come to know that even though atom is the smallest part of matter, having the characteristic of the element, it too can be divided into protons, into neutrons, into electrons. So people may think the Quran speaks about zarra as the small part. Maybe the Quran is outdated. But Quran says in Surah Sabah, chapter number 34, verse number 3, and Surah Yunus, chapter number 10, verse number 61, that when they ask you that the hour will not come, tell them, it will surely come with the permission of the Lord, in whose record is the minutest detail of an atom, of zarra, and in whose record are things greater and smaller than atom. So Quran 1400 years ago says that there are things smaller and greater than atom. It says that atom is very minute, but further says that in the record of Almighty God are things smaller and greater than atom. So Quran is not outdated, it is up to date. In the field of hydrology, we learned in school about the water cycle. And this water cycle was first described by Sir Bernard Palissy in the year 1580. And we learned in school that the water evaporates from the ocean. It forms into clouds. The clouds move into the interior and they fall down as rain and the water table is replenished. Previously, in 7th century BC, Thales of Miletus, he said it was the spray of the ocean which was picked up by the wind which fell into the interior as rain. People did not know how did the underground water come, where did it come from. They thought it was the pressure of the wind on the water which thrust the water into the interior, and it went till it was propounded by Pluto that the secret passage by which the water went, it was called a Tartarus. And this was believed till as late as 17th century even by Descartes. And 4th century Aristotle believed that the water which was there underground in the spring, it was due to the condensation of water in mountain caverns which fed the springs. Today we know that the underground water we have is due to the seepage of the rainwater in the cracks in the ground. It's mentioned in the Quran, in Surah Az-Zumar, chapter number 39, verse number 21, that seest thou not, it is he who sends down water from the sky and leads it in cracks in ground and causes sown field of varying colors to grow. It's mentioned in Surah Rum, chapter number 30, verse number 24, it is he who sends down water from the sky and gives life to the earth after it is dead. It's mentioned in the Quran in Surah Mu'minun, chapter number 23, verse number 18, it is we who send down water from the sky. We are able to store it or we are able to drain it. It's mentioned in the Quran in Surah Hijr, chapter 15, verse number 22. It says that we cause fecundating winds. The Arabic word used is lawaki, coming from the Arabic word laka. It means to fecundate. And today science tells us that the pollen, which is carried by the wind, they fecundate the clouds. They impregnate the clouds from which the water falls. The other reason is that the clouds join together and then you see water emerging from the sky. Quran mentioned 14 years ago that we cause fecundating winds. The Quran says in Surah Rum, chapter number 30, verse number 48, that we cause the water to evaporate from the sky, then form into clouds, the clouds move to the interior and talks about the water cycle. Quran says in Surah Nur, chapter number 24, verse number 43, that we cause the clouds to join, then make it into a heap, and then water emerges from the top. The Quran speaks about the water cycle in great detail in several verses. Besides all these verses I spoke, it is mentioned also about the water cycle in Surah Araf, chapter number 7, verse number 57. In Surah Rod, chapter number 13, verse number 17. In Surah Furqan, chapter number 25, verse number 40 and 49. It's mentioned in Surah Fatir, chapter number 35, verse number 9. It's mentioned in Surah Yasin, chapter number 36, verse number 34. It's mentioned in Surah Ghashiyah, chapter number 45, verse number 5. It's mentioned in Surah Qaf, chapter number 50, verse number 9 and 10. It's mentioned in Surah Waqia, chapter number 56, verse number 60 to 70. It's mentioned in Surah Mulk, chapter number 67, verse number 30. It's mentioned in Surah Tariq, chapter number 6, verse number 11. I can go on and on giving only references in the Quran which speak about the water cycle. Who could have mentioned about this water cycle in so much great detail which was discovered in 1580? Hardly 450 years back, what we came to know is mentioned in the Quran 1450 years before. Who could have mentioned this? The Quran also speaks about geology. Today, the geologists they tell us that the earth on which we live, the radius is about 3,750 miles. And the deeper layers, they are hot and they are fluid, and they cannot sustain life. The upper layers are solid, and the superficial layer is about 1 to 30 miles in thickness. And it is a very thin crust. And there are high chances that this superficial layer, it will shake. Today, science tells us it is the mountain ranges which give stability to the earth on which we live. Quran says in Surah Naba, chapter number 78, verse number 6 and 7, that we have made the earth as an expanse. Wal jabala autada, and the mountains as stakes. The Arabic word used here is autad, meaning stakes, meaning tent pegs. You know, when we put a tent peg into the ground, the portion that we see above the head is very small. The major portion goes deep underground. So Quran says we have made the mountains as stakes, as tent pegs. Quran says in Surah Ghashiyah, chapter number 88, verse number 19, as well as Surah Naziyah, chapter number 79, verse number 32, that we have placed on the earth mountains standing firm. Today, most of the universities that teach about geology, they refer to a main book called as The Earth. One of its authors, his name is Dr. Frank Press, who was previously the president of the Academy of Sciences of USA, and was also previously the science advisor to the ex-president of USA, Jimmy Carter. And he draws mountains in the book, The Earth, and he shows that the mountain has got roots, wedge-shaped, deep underground. And he writes there that the main function of the mountain is to prevent the earth from shaking. And this is exactly what the Quran says in Surah Anbiya, chapter number 21, verse number 31, and Surah Nahl, chapter number 16, verse number 15, that we have placed on the earth mountain standing firm, lest it would shake with you. Quran mentions clearly 1400 years ago that the function of the mountain is to prevent the earth from shaking, which Dr. Frank Press writes recently, 40 years back, 50 years back. In the field of oceanology, Quran says in Surah Furqan, chapter number 25, verse number 53, that it is He who has let free two bodies of flowing water, one sweet and palatable, and the other salty and bitter. Though they meet, they do not mix. There is a barrier which is forbidden to be trespassed. The same message repeated is mentioned in Surah Rahman, chapter number 55, verse number 19 and 20. Marajal bahrayni yaltaqiyan baynahuma barzakh la yabghiyan. It is Allah who has let free two bodies of flowing water. Though they meet, they do not mix. There is a barrier which is forbidden to be trespassed. Previously, the commentators of the Quran, they used to wonder, what does this verse mean? We know that there are two types of water, one is sweet and the other is salty. But what does the Quran mean by saying that though these two types of water meet, they do not mix, there is a barrier between them? Today, after science advance, we have come to know that whenever one type of water flows into the other type of water, it loses its constituents and gets homogenized into the water it flows. And they call this as the homogenizing area, which the Quran refers to as barzakh, the unseen barrier. And we can see this phenomena in the southernmost tip of South Africa, in the Cape Point or Cape of Good Hope, where we find the two waters meeting. We can even see the different colors of these two waters. We can even see in Egypt when River Nile flows into the Mediterranean Sea. And one of the good examples is the Gulf Stream. It starts from the Gulf of Mexico, then goes northwards, then goes to the east, goes to Europe. It flows for thousands of miles. And if you're traveling in a boat and pick up water from one side of the boat and pick up water from the other side, you'll find that one is sweet and the other is salty. Even the temperature between these two waters, it differs. Imagine Quran speaks about this unseen barrier 1400 years ago. In the field of biology, the Quran says in Surah Anbiya, chapter number 21, verse number 30, وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ أَفَلَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. We have created every living thing from water. Will you not then believe? Imagine in the deserts of Arabia, 1400 years ago, the Quran is saying every living thing is created from water. Who would have believed in it? In the deserts of Arabia, where there was scarcity of water, who would have believed in the Quran that every living thing is made from water? Today, after science advance, we have come to know that every living creature, its basic is the cell. And the major portion of cell is the cytoplasm, which is approximately 80% water. And today science tells us that 50 to 90% of all living creatures, they are made of water. The Quran says in Surah Nur, chapter number 24, verse number 45, we have created every animal from water. The Quran says in Surah Furqan, chapter number 25, verse 54, we have created every human being from water. Who could have mentioned this in the Quran? The atheist cannot say it is fluke.
तो देखा आपने, हर एक फील्ड में कुरान पहले ही डिस्कस कर चुका है। तो जुड़े रहें, अगला पार्ट आने वाला है जिसमें हम देखेंगे एम्ब्रियोलॉजी या बॉटनी के बारे में डिस्कस किया हुआ है।